We've long believed that America's greatest threats come from beyond its borders. But what happens when the danger is already inside, shielded by privilege, shielded by immunity, walking through the doors of Washington under the guise of diplomacy? Chicago slept as the CJNG fentanyl network surged in ways no cartel alone could manage. Shipments arrived with machine-like precision. Routes bypassed traditional law enforcement patterns. Financial flows moved faster than expected. And yet for months, no one could explain why. Something was wrong, very wrong. And what investigators were about to uncover would redefine the meaning of foreign infiltration on American soil. 3 months earlier, DEA analysts noticed an anomaly. Fentanyl output should have dropped after multiple seizures. Instead, it climbed, then spiked. Graphs flickered red. Analysts ran the numbers again and again. Each time the conclusion was the same. This was not a cartel operating alone. Some outside force was orchestrating it. Encrypted messages seized from CJNG devices referenced a name, Long Meridian. Analysts assumed it was a low-level accountant. It wasn't. Cross-referencing shipping manifests, financial transfers, and warehouse data, ICE analysts traced the network directly to Ambassador Jen Wei-ming, the Chinese ambassador to the United States. A man with diplomatic immunity protected shipping lanes and unrestricted global communication. 2 years after his arrival, fentanyl precursor imports from China surged 430%. 3 Chicago stash houses raided by ICE contained crates stamped with Chinese diplomatic seals. This was no ordinary cartel operation. Chicago was not only compromised, it was being managed. Federal agencies had to face an uncomfortable truth. If one ambassador could build this network in just a few years, how many other cities, ports, and companies were silently facilitating the same operation? How many more chemical shipments were bypassing customs under diplomatic cover? And how many lives had already been lost to this carefully orchestrated trade? At 4:12 a.m., federal agents moved into position. 5 CJNG-linked facilities were targeted simultaneously. Armored vehicles rolled through foggy streets, tactical lights cutting through the pre-dawn haze. The only sounds were the quiet hum of engines and the distant wail of a lone siren. Every team member knew that a single mistake could cost lives or tip off the network. Flashbangs detonated in Brighton Park. Windows rattled. Agents surged through the breach. Inside, rows of heat-sealed fentanyl bricks marked with the CJNG Eagle emblem awaited pickup. The chemical smell was sharp and acidic. No street-level operation moves product this cleanly. This was industrial precision. At the same moment, DEA agents breached a warehouse in Bridgeview, disguised as a tire distributor. The hydraulic ram slammed against the reinforced door. Sparks flew, illuminating the thick, chemical-laden air. Fumes drifted through the hallways. Stainless steel tables glistened with residue from recent chemical processing. Shots rang out from behind metal partitions. Agents returned fire under ballistic shields. When the last gunman surrendered under a false floor panel, crates stamped with Chinese diplomatic seals were uncovered, still cold from transit. These weren't ordinary shipments. They were precursors ready for processing, legally untouchable until now. ATF teams encountered the heaviest resistance in Joliet. As gates were cut, 2 CJNG enforcers opened fire from elevated catwalks. Muzzle flashes lit the night like strobe lights. Agents advanced carefully behind armored shields, returning suppressive fire to contain the threat. Inside the trailers, assault rifles were wrapped in oilcloth serial numbers, defaced, later traced to a CJNG route through Central America. Nearby pallets of pill presses capable of producing 100,000 fentanyl tablets every 8 hours confirmed that this was no ordinary stash house. Every detail of these operations was precise, coordinated, and lethal. The 5th and most critical target was a warehouse in Little Village. FBI HRT approached silently. Thermal overlays revealed movement inside. Agents breached from 3 sides. Behind a false shelving unit, a concealed freight elevator descended into a sub-level chamber. Crates were stacked with military precision. Servers hummed quietly. Cash was vacuum-sealed into weatherproof blocks. 5 tons of narcotics, 43 weapons, and dozens of data drives were recovered. A single file labeled C-Channel Line contained a directive signed by Ambassador Jen Wei-ming. It authorized priority access and unrestricted movement for CJNG chemical partners through Chicago's commercial corridors. The implications were undeniable. The ambassador wasn't merely assisting the cartel, he was coordinating it. Meanwhile, analysts combed through months of shipping and financial records. Diplomatic containers that should have been scanned for chemical precursors arrived unchecked, sealed with official government insignia. Freight companies listed as industrial suppliers had never shipped legitimate goods. Offshore accounts linked to shell companies funneled millions of dollars directly into CJNG strongholds in Guadalajara and Panama City. The network was sophisticated beyond imagination, built to withstand traditional law enforcement raids and recover faster than anyone expected. By 6:20 a.m., the Attorney General, DHS, FBI, and IC convened an emergency briefing. Digital maps of Chicago corridors, shipping routes, and CJNG facilities projected across the room. Intelligence analysts confirmed the worst-case scenario. Diplomatic immunity shielded a criminal architect, and this network extended far beyond Chicago. The U.S. government authorized a strike on a commercial satellite office 30 minutes outside Washington. Not the embassy itself, untouchable under international law, but a facility operating under embassy authority. Without full immunity, Operation Emerald Gate was underway. At 10:17 a.m., the strike began. Flashbangs shattered the silence. Agents stormed corridors with shields raised. 2 embassy-linked staff barricaded themselves behind reinforced glass, attempting to purge data. A thermal charge broke the barrier. Inside, 12 active servers were mid-transfer, sending terabytes of data overseas. Cyber teams severed uplinks just in time. Binders stamped with Chinese government insignia revealed detailed chemical procurement lists, transit schedules through Midwest warehouses, and a Chicago corridor stability plan. The final page repeated the directive found in Chicago: ensure uninterrupted flow coordination with CJNG Finance, authorized, signed, Jen Wei Ming. Chicago wasn't an accident. It was an engineered artery of a criminal network protected by diplomatic privilege. The fallout was immediate. 7 embassy personnel were detained. 14 CJNG-affiliated factories, warehouses, and import companies across Illinois, Wisconsin, and Indiana were shut down. Millions in chemicals, cash, and narcotics were seized, yet the full scale of the network remained partly obscured. Analysts discovered encrypted routing files tied to New York, Los Angeles, Atlanta, and Seattle. Multiple diplomatic shipments had already reached these cities in the months leading up to Operation Emerald Gate. The network was national, not regional, and far more resilient than any conventional cartel. Chicago wasn't just compromised, it was a hub, and the network had only just begun to be dismantled. If one ambassador could construct such infrastructure, how many more cities remained vulnerable? How many ports? How many partners? How many safe houses had been silently operating for years? The answer remained unknown. The operation proved the war wasn't just against cartels. It was against anyone willing to infiltrate this country from the inside, shielded by diplomacy, shielded by privilege. If federal agents hadn't acted, the Chicago corridor would still be pumping fentanyl cash and influence straight into the heart of the United States. The American people deserved to know the truth, and now, for the first time, they did.